When I was 22, I started injecting testosterone into my body so that I could medically transition from female to male. Then went on to get what they call top surgery in the business, which is a double mastectomy. Then was on testosterone for a few months after that as well, before I started to realize that I had made a mistake. I think when I was maybe like 19 or 20, something like that, I started identifying as non-binary. I felt uncomfortable being seen as a woman. I just didn't feel very comfortable with myself. Once I realized that, like, you know, medically transitioning was something that like people like me were doing, I was like, oh, like it all makes sense. This is why I've always been so obsessed with my body and so obsessed with managing it. And this is why I've had like issues with wanting to be super skinny and restricting my eating. And it's because I just didn't have the right body. Graduated from college and basically had like a very deep mental health crisis. I had been sort of like going downhill and like just had a real like failure to launch. I just hadn't really figured out anything to do with myself at that point, and I was really lost. I think when things feel out of control and you're in a situation where you don't know what to do, I think it's easy to fixate on something that is under your control. When I was transitioning, I went to a therapist. I don't think she had really deeply studied trans stuff. She was just sort of like, okay, well, it sounds good, you know, sounds like you got a good idea of what you're doing. And we did a few sessions, and I told her what I was thinking, and I told her that I, you know, was having suicidal thoughts and that I thought that this would help it. And she was like, okay. And then I stopped going to her for a while until I needed to go back and get my letter for top surgery, which I had to have. And then she did write me that. The effects of testosterone was really interesting and very exciting for me at first. My breasts started shrinking. I started losing body fat and becoming leaner, which I really liked. I was growing a lot of body hair, including some on my face and like, you know, just my legs and my stomach, and everything was getting hairier. I had been this like weepy, sad, lost person, and then I started feeling like this rush. The hormones made me feel like, you know, it turned off the sadness and it made me feel like stronger, and I was stronger. I got these awesome arm muscles without even trying. But I have to say there was a small like underlying anxiety like beneath the excitement that was like a fear that I might be doing something wrong. I dressed masculine, I changed my name. I did sort of like a androgynous name, and then like once I passed as a man, then I would like change my name to something like fully masculine and sort of like integrate into society as a man. But as it turns out, I never got to that step, because after getting into transition to the point where I had surgery, things took a dramatic turn for the worse. I had my surgery when I was 23, and I had expected that it would be making me feel less depressed and making me feel, you know, like I had a purpose in going forward. That had made me think I was on the right path, because I was like, this is what's happening. I'm becoming my true self. I'm feeling better. And I thought that the top surgery would be a very large step in that direction. Like I would feel much better. And it was for a very short amount of time. So I had the surgery. I was incredibly like, you know, weak, and like I had painkillers, and it was like this really intense experience, obviously. And then right after the surgery, I had been hit with these like awful feelings of having made like a huge mistake, like undeniable, just like, oh no, like what have I done? You know, I was like looking down at my body and seeing like this, like these like weeping gashes on my chest, and just having like the most awful feeling. And then of course I went online and was like, has anyone else felt this? And I remember I came across this blog that echoed something that I was myself feeling, which was, I was like, all right, I got a flat chest, like I look good on top. And then I was like, my hips are still wide. Like, I don't know what to do about this. I can't get like hip removal surgery, like for the bones. And then I was like, what am I gonna do? I was thinking about that and realizing like, I don't really feel better. And I found this trans man's blog where he had said like, I had just started out wanting to masculinize my face with testosterone, but once that happened, then I wanted a flat chest, and once that happened, then I needed like phalloplasty. And basically he was saying that what had started out as like just wanting a small amount of masculinization had then actually made him more dysphoric about all the different parts of his body. And I was like, oh no, like this is never over. Like this will never be over for me. And I just was realizing that there might not be a light at the end of the tunnel like I thought there was. I also don't really feel like a man. I just feel like a woman who has had her breasts cut off. So I decided to just stop testosterone after the doubts continued to grow. These days I'm doing pretty well, I think. It's been really important for me to like move on and like build a life. And it's been so empowering to talk to other detransitioners and do my writing about my story. I wanted people to know that there is life after detransition, even if you've made serious physical changes, because I mean, humans are very resilient. Humans survive all kinds of things. And I had to just understand that I, may have made some serious mistakes, but you can always rebuild your life. I'm really worried about other people who are getting sucked into, thinking that gender transition is the answer to problems that would be better solved elsewhere. I am hopeful, but I think it's going to be a really ugly time. I think a lot of people are honestly going to be hurt, and I think the fallout is going to be really severe from all the detransitioners. So I'm a little worried about that. But our voices can no longer be denied, so that's good. My voice is still lower than it used to be. I'm concerned that the testosterone may have affected my fertility and like potentially will cause me some like infertility issues, but I really don't know. So that's something that, I'll have to find out in the future. And that I think more than anything else, regret over that, because I just hadn't been thinking about having children at that time. I didn't think I really wanted them, and that's something that I began to really want in my mid-20s. So that is something that I feel very worried about.